Daniel Carter punched the hospital wall so hard his knuckles split open. "Say it again," he demanded, blood dripping onto the white floor. The doctor stepped back. "Sir, I'm sorry. Ms. Hayes was pronounced dead at 11:52 p.m. There was nothing. She asked me about my bed 8 hours ago." Daniel grabbed the doctor's coat. "She asked if it was big enough for two. I said only if she was the one beside me. She was supposed to meet me tomorrow." Security rushed in. Daniel collapsed against the wall, sliding down, leaving a red smear behind him. Victoria Hayes died holding a secret about his daughter. A secret he would spend years uncovering. From which city are you watching? Comment below. Is your bed big enough for two? Daniel's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. He looked up at Victoria Hayes standing in his doorway, hip cocked against the frame, arms crossed, watching him with those dark eyes that had haunted his dreams for months. "Excuse me. You heard me." She stepped inside and kicked the door shut behind her. The slam echoed through the office. Daniel set his cup down carefully, buying time, trying to control his racing pulse. "Ms. Hayes, Victoria." Victoria. Her name felt dangerous in his mouth. "That's not an appropriate question. I'm the CEO. I decide what's appropriate. And I'm your employee. Who could get fired for answering?" Victoria walked toward his desk. Slow, deliberate, each step calculated. She stopped inches from him, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something expensive, something that made his head spin. "Answer anyway." Daniel pushed back from his desk and stood. They were nearly the same height now, eye to eye, breath to breath. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I'm running out of time." "Running out of time for what?" Victoria's hand trembled as she reached up and touched his jaw. Her fingers were cold. Daniel grabbed her wrist, not to push her away, but to hold her there. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked. "Everything." Her voice cracked. "I'm not telling you everything, Daniel, and I'm terrified I never will." "Then tell me now." "I can't. Not here. Not like this." She pulled her hand free and stepped back, and Daniel saw something he'd never seen on Victoria Hayes' face before. Fear. "Meet me tomorrow," she said. "Riverside Park, the bench by the old oak tree. Noon. Victoria, please." The word came out broken. "I need to tell you something about your daughter." Daniel's blood went cold. "Lily? What about Lily?" "Tomorrow. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Just..." She pressed her palm against her chest, wincing slightly. "Just promise you'll come." "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Promise me." "I promise." Victoria nodded once, turned and walked out. At the door she paused and looked back over her shoulder. "The answer," Daniel said quietly, "to your question, it's yes. But only if you're the one beside me." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Then she was gone. Daniel stood alone in his office, heart pounding, mind racing, completely unaware that he would never see her alive again. "Carter." Daniel looked up from his computer. Marcus Webb, Senior VP of Operations, stood in his doorway with a smirk that Daniel wanted to punch off his face. "Webb?" "Saw Victoria leave your office." Marcus leaned against the frame, mimicking Victoria's pose from minutes earlier. Door was closed an awfully long time. "We were discussing the Henderson project." "Is that what they're calling it now?" Daniel stood slowly. "You have something to say, Marcus." "Just making an observation." Marcus examined his fingernails casually. "You've been here 18 months, promoted twice. Victoria visits your office more than she visits the boardroom. People are starting to talk." "Let them talk." "Oh, they are. Jennifer in accounting thinks you're sleeping together. Robert in legal thinks you're blackmailing her. Personally," Marcus smiled, "I think she's lost her mind. Promoting a nobody from middle management to senior project manager. Giving you access to her private calendar. Visiting your kid." Daniel crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed Marcus by the collar. "Say one more word about my daughter." Marcus's smirk wavered. "Easy, Carter. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking." "Then tell everyone else to mind their own business and stay away from my office." He shoved Marcus backward into the hallway. Marcus stumbled, caught himself, and straightened his tie with shaking hands. "You're making a mistake," Marcus said. "Whatever you think is happening with Victoria, it's not what you think. She doesn't do relationships. She doesn't do family. She uses people and throws them away. Ask anyone who's been here longer than 5 minutes. Get out." Marcus walked away, but his words lingered like poison in the air. Daniel closed his door and leaned against it, breathing hard. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor who watched Lily after school. Lily asking if Miss Victoria is coming today. What should I tell her? Daniel stared at the message. His 6-year-old daughter had become obsessed with Victoria Hayes over the past 3 months. It had started with cookies. Victoria bringing treats whenever she visited Daniel's office. Then drawings. Then questions. Does Miss Victoria like dinosaurs? Daddy, does Miss Victoria have a dog? Does Miss Victoria have any kids? That last question had made Daniel pause. He'd never thought about it before. Victoria was 43, unmarried, no children that he knew of. She ran a billion-dollar company. She attended galas and charity events. She graced the covers of business magazines, but she'd never mentioned family. He typed back, "Tell her maybe tomorrow." His phone buzzed again immediately. "She says tomorrow isn't good enough. She made Miss Victoria a picture and wants to give it to her today." Daniel smiled despite everything. Lily was stubborn. She got that from him. "I'll bring it to work Monday. Victoria will love it." He hoped that was true. He hoped Victoria would be there on Monday. He hoped whatever she needed to tell him wasn't as bad as the fear in her eyes suggested. He was wrong on all counts. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed replaying their conversation, analyzing every word, every gesture, every flicker of emotion on Victoria's face. "I need to tell you something about your daughter." What could Victoria possibly know about Lily? They'd only met 3 months ago. Lily was 6 years old, adopted the daughter of Daniel's late sister Rebecca and her husband Tom, both killed in a car accident 4 years ago. Daniel had been named godfather at Lily's birth and had taken her in without hesitation when Rebecca died. There was nothing to know. Nothing Victoria could have discovered. Unless no, that was impossible. At 5 a.m., he gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen. He made coffee, burned toast, and stared at the refrigerator where Lily's drawings hung in a chaotic collage. One drawing caught his eye. Recent. 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall one, a medium one, and a tiny one with yellow scribbles for hair. "That's you, Daddy." "That's me. And that's Miss Victoria." Lily had added a heart above the figures. A family. Daniel's chest ached. "Daddy?" He turned. Lily stood in the kitchen doorway, clutching her stuffed elephant. Her blonde hair a tangled mess, her eyes still heavy with sleep. "Hey, baby girl. You're up early." "I heard you walking around." She shuffled over and climbed into his lap. "Are you sad?" "No, sweetheart. Just thinking." "About Miss Victoria." Daniel tensed. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you always get quiet when you think about her." Lily poked his cheek. "Your face does this thing." "What thing?" "Like you want to smile but forgot how." Out of the mouths of babes. "Lily, can I ask you something?" "Okay." "What do you and Miss Victoria talk about when she visits?" Lily scrunched her face, thinking hard. "She asks about school. And my drawings. And what I want to be when I grow up." "What else?" "She asked about Mommy Rebecca one time." Daniel's heart stopped. "She did?" "Yeah. She wanted to know if I remembered her. I said only a little because I was a baby when she went to heaven. Miss Victoria got really quiet after that. Her eyes got all shiny like she was gonna cry. Did she say why? Lily shook her head. She just hugged me really tight and said she was sorry. Then she gave me extra cookies. Daniel held his daughter closer, a terrible suspicion forming in his mind. But he pushed it away. It was too crazy, too impossible. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Miss Victoria loves us. She told me. When did she tell you that? Last time. She said she loved me very much ever since I was born. She said she was sorry she couldn't be there when I was little, but she was here now and she wasn't going anywhere. Lily looked up at him with innocent eyes. What did she mean, Daddy? How could she love me since I was born if she just met me? Daniel had no answer. He had nothing but a growing dread that something was very, very wrong. He arrived at Riverside Park at 11:45 a.m. The bench by the old oak tree was empty. Leaves scattered across the path in the autumn wind, and the sky hung gray and heavy with the threat of rain. Daniel sat down and waited. 11:50. He checked his phone. No messages. 11:55. He texted Victoria. I'm here. Where are you? 12:00. No response. 12:05. He called. Straight to voicemail. Victoria, it's Daniel. I'm at the park. The bench by the oak tree. I'm waiting. 12:15. He called again. Hey, it's me. Starting to worry. Call me back. 12:30. Victoria, please. Whatever you need to tell me, I can handle it. Just call me. 12:45. He stood and paced, phone pressed to his ear. God damn it, Victoria, answer your phone. 1:00 p.m. The first drop of rain fell. Daniel didn't move. He stood by that bench as the sky opened up as rain soaked through his jacket as his phone stayed silent in his hand. 1:15. He called Mrs. Patterson. Can you keep Lily a few more hours? Something came up. Of course, dear. Is everything all right? I don't know. 1:30. He drove to Hayes Enterprises. The security guard at the front desk looked confused. Mr. Carter, it's Saturday. I know. Has Ms. Hayes been in today? No, sir, I haven't seen her. Daniel's stomach dropped. What about her assistant Rachel? Is she available? Ms. Hayes' assistant doesn't work weekends, sir. Give me her number. Sir, I can't. Give me her goddamn number. The guard flinched and handed over a business card. Daniel dialed before he reached the parking lot. Hello? A woman's voice, annoyed at being disturbed. Rachel, this is Daniel Carter. I work with Victoria. I know who you are, Mr. Carter. The annoyance shifted to wariness. What do you want? Have you heard from Victoria today? She was supposed to meet me, and she never showed. Silence on the other end. Rachel. Mr. Carter, where are you right now? The office parking lot. Why? Stay there. I'm sending someone. Sending someone? What the hell is going on? Just stay there. The line went dead. Daniel stood in the rainwater streaming down his face and felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Something was wrong. Something was terribly, horribly wrong. 15 minutes later, a black sedan pulled into the lot. A man in a dark suit stepped out. Not someone Daniel recognized. Mr. Carter, who are you? My name is William Bradford. I'm Ms. Hayes' attorney. The man's face was gray, his eyes hollow. I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Where's Victoria? Bradford didn't answer. He simply looked at Daniel with an expression that said everything. No. Daniel stepped back. No, that's not. She was fine yesterday. I saw her yesterday. She was fine. Mr. Carter. She asked about my bed. Daniel grabbed Bradford's lapels. She asked if it was big enough for two. She was going to tell me something important. She can't be. She can't. She collapsed last night. Around 11:30 p.m. Her housekeeper found her this morning. Bradford's voice was gentle, careful. It was her heart, a congenital condition. She never knew about it. Daniel released the attorney and stumbled backward. His back hit a car. He slid down until he was sitting on the wet asphalt, rain pouring over him, and he screamed. He screamed Victoria's name. He screamed at the sky. He screamed until his throat tore and his voice gave out. Bradford stood over him, umbrella blocking the rain, waiting patiently for the storm to pass. "Mr. Carter," he finally said, "I know this is the worst possible time, but Ms. Hayes left specific instructions. There are things you need to know, things about your daughter." Daniel looked up, eyes red, face ravaged. "What about my daughter?" "Not here. Come with me, please." They went to Bradford's office downtown. Daniel sat in a leather chair, still dripping, still shaking, while the attorney poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "Drink," Bradford ordered. "You're in shock." Daniel drank. The whiskey burned, but he felt nothing. Bradford sat across from him and opened a leather folder. "Mr. Carter, how much do you know about Ms. Hayes's personal life?" "Not much. She was private. Very private. Deliberately so." Bradford removed a photograph and slid it across the table. "This was taken 22 years ago." Daniel picked up the photo. A young woman, barely more than a girl, sat in a hospital bed holding an infant. The woman was Victoria. Younger, softer, but unmistakably Victoria. And she was crying. "Victoria had a daughter," Bradford said. 22 years ago. She was 18, unmarried and pregnant. Her parents, wealthy, powerful people, demanded she give the child up for adoption or be cut off completely. "I don't understand." "The child was adopted through Grace Hope Adoption Services in Wisconsin." Bradford paused. "The same agency your sister used to adopt Lily." The photograph slipped from Daniel's fingers. "Victoria spent 15 years searching for her daughter," Bradford continued. "She hired investigators, traced records, followed every lead. 6 months ago, she finally found her." "No." "The birth date matches. The medical records match. 3 months ago, Ms. Hayes obtained a DNA sample and had it tested. The results were conclusive." "No. No, that's not possible." "Lily is Victoria's biological daughter, Mr. Carter. Your boss was your daughter's birth mother." Daniel stood so fast his chair toppled backward. "You're lying. I have the DNA results here if you'd like to." "Why wouldn't she tell me? Why would she keep this a secret?" "She was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't let her see Lily. Afraid you'd think she was trying to take your daughter away. She wanted to build a relationship first, earn your trust before revealing the truth." "The cookies." Daniel's voice was hollow. "The visits. The questions about Lily's drawings. She was getting to know her daughter, the daughter she'd spent 15 years trying to find." Daniel pressed his hands against his eyes. "She said she loved Lily since she was born. Lily told me. She didn't understand what Victoria meant. I didn't understand. Victoria was supposed to tell you everything today. She'd planned it for weeks. She wrote and rewrote what she wanted to say a dozen times." Bradford's voice cracked slightly. "She called me Friday night to update her will. Said she had a feeling, something she couldn't explain. She wanted everything in order before she saw you." "What did she change?" Bradford handed him a document. "She named you permanent CEO of Hayes Enterprises. She established a trust that gives Lily controlling interest in the company when she turns 25. And she left this. A sealed envelope. Daniel's name on the front in Victoria's handwriting. She wrote it Friday morning, after she left your office." Daniel took the envelope. It felt impossibly heavy. "There's something else," Bradford said. "Something Victoria discovered during her search that you don't know." "What?" "Victoria gave her daughter a name before giving her up. She wrote it in the adoption file, even though she knew the adoptive parents would choose their own name." Bradford paused. "She named her Lily." The room spun. Daniel grabbed the edge of the desk to stay upright. Your sister named her Lily too. Victoria always believed it was a sign proof that some connection remained even across the years of separation. Bradford's eyes were wet. When she found out, she cried for 3 hours straight. She said it meant her daughter had been loved, that the name she'd chosen had somehow found its way back. Daniel couldn't speak, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Victoria had named her daughter Lily. Rebecca had named her daughter Lily, and somehow, impossibly, they had both loved the same child. Daniel didn't open the letter until midnight. Lily was asleep at Mrs. Patterson's. He couldn't face her yet, couldn't look into her eyes, knowing what he now knew. He sat in his empty apartment in the dark, holding the envelope Victoria had sealed just hours before she died. His hands shook as he opened it. Dear Daniel, if you're reading this, then my worst fear came true. I found my daughter, but I didn't get to tell you myself. I was 18 when I got pregnant, scared, alone, abandoned by the boy I thought loved me. My parents gave me a choice, give up my baby or lose everything. I was young and stupid, and I made the wrong decision. I've regretted it every single day since. I named her Lily. The nurses thought I was crazy naming a baby I was giving away, but I couldn't let her go without giving her something of myself. A name, a hope, a prayer that someday, somehow, I'd find her again. I built Hayes Enterprises for her. Every late night, every sacrifice, every dollar, it was all for Lily. So that when I found her, I could give her the life I couldn't provide when I was 18. And then I found her. With you. I should have told you immediately. I should have been brave. But I was terrified, Daniel. Terrified you'd see me as a threat. Terrified you'd take Lily away from me before I ever got to know her. So I brought cookies. I asked about her drawings. I fell in love with my daughter all over again, watching her grow, hearing her laugh, seeing glimpses of myself in her face. And I fell in love with you too. I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. Loving your daughter's adoptive father was a complication I didn't need. But you were kind, Daniel. Patient. The way you looked at Lily like she was the center of your universe, I knew you were a good man. I knew my daughter was safe. I need you to know something. When I asked about your bed, I wasn't propositioning you. I was asking if there was room in your life for me. Room for Lily's birth mother. Room for something that might have been beautiful if fate had given us more time. Tell Lily about me someday. Tell her I loved her from her first breath to my last. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't stay. And Daniel, the answer you gave me about your bed being big enough if I was the one beside you, hold on to that. Even if I'm not there physically, I'll be there in... The letter ended mid-sentence. Daniel turned the page over. Nothing. Just that incomplete thought, that unfinished promise. Victoria had died before she could finish. He held the letter against his chest and wept. For Victoria, for Lily, for himself, for the future that had been stolen from all of them. Outside, the rain continued to fall, and somewhere across the city in a hospital morgue, Victoria Hayes lay silent and cold, her secrets finally free, her daughter finally found too late. The funeral was held on a Tuesday morning, gray and cold, the kind of day that made Daniel believe God had a cruel sense of humor. He stood in the back row of St. Michael's Cathedral, Lily's small hand clutched in his, watching hundreds of people file past Victoria's closed casket. Business executives in $1,000 suits, politicians with practiced expressions of grief, celebrities who had probably met Victoria once at a charity gala and now wanted to be seen mourning her. Daddy, why is the box closed? Daniel squeezed Lily's hand. Because Miss Victoria is sleeping, sweetheart. For how long? Forever. Lily processed this with the terrible simplicity of childhood. That's a long time to sleep. Yes, baby, it is. The service lasted 2 hours. Speaker after speaker took the podium, business partners praising Victoria's Vision employees, thanking her for opportunities, a senator calling her a titan of American industry. Not one of them mentioned her laugh. Not one of them mentioned the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, or how she always carried mints in her pocket, or how she cried when she talked about the daughter she'd lost. None of them had known her. Not really. When it was over, Daniel tried to slip out the side door, but a hand caught his elbow. "Mr. Carter." He turned. William Bradford stood behind him, looking even grayer than he had 2 days ago. "The reading of the will is tomorrow at 9, Bradford said quietly. "I need you there." "I told you I don't want the company." "It's not about what you want. It's about what Victoria wanted." Bradford glanced at Lily, who was staring at a stained glass window depicting an angel. "And there are things in that will that concern your daughter. Things you need to hear." Daniel wanted to argue. He wanted to walk out of this church and never look back. But Victoria's letter was folded in his pocket, her unfinished sentence burning against his chest. "Fine, I'll be there." Bradford nodded and disappeared into the crowd. Daniel took Lily's hand and headed for the door, but another voice stopped him. "You must be Daniel Carter." A woman stood in the aisle blocking his path. She was tall, dark-haired, with Victoria's cheekbones and Victoria's eyes, but softer somehow, less guarded. She looked like she'd been crying for days. "Who are you?" "Rachel Coleman." She extended her hand. "Victoria's sister." Daniel stared at her. Victoria didn't have a sister. Victoria didn't have a sister she talked about. Rachel corrected. "There's a difference." Her eyes dropped to Lily, and something flickered across her face. Recognition, pain, longing. "And you must be Lily." Lily pressed against Daniel's leg. "How do you know my name?" "Victoria told me about you." Rachel crouched down to Lily's level. "She said you were the most beautiful girl in the world. She said you liked dinosaurs and drawing and chocolate chip cookies." "Miss Victoria gave me cookies," Lily said softly, "every time she visited." "I know, sweetheart. She told me that too." Rachel's voice cracked. "She loved giving you those cookies. It made her so happy." Daniel pulled Lily closer. "What do you want?" Rachel stood. "I want to talk. About Victoria. About what she was trying to tell you." She glanced around at the thinning crowd. "Not here. Somewhere private. Tonight if possible." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I have answers, Mr. Carter. Answers you need." Rachel reached into her purse and pulled out a small leather journal. Victoria kept diaries, for years. She sent me the last one a week before she died, along with a letter asking me to give it to you if anything happened to her. Daniel's heart stopped. She knew. She knew she was going to die. She suspected something was wrong. She'd been having chest pains for months but refused to see a doctor. She was afraid if something was wrong, she'd die before she could tell you the truth about Lily. Rachel pressed the journal into his hands. She was right to be afraid. Daniel looked at the journal, worn leather pages stuffed with loose papers and photographs. Victoria's handwriting on the cover. "For Daniel when I find the courage." "Tonight," he said. 8 o'clock. I'll text you my address." Rachel nodded, touched Lily's hair gently, and walked away. Daniel watched her go, then looked down at the journal in his hands. More secrets, more revelations, more ghosts from a past Victoria had never shared. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Was that lady Miss Victoria's family? Daniel thought about that. About the empty front pews at the funeral. About the absence of parents, siblings, anyone who shared Victoria's blood. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I think we're going to find out." Rachel arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, carrying a box of old photographs and a bottle of wine Daniel didn't touch. Lily was already in bed, exhausted from the funeral and the emotions of the past few days. Daniel sat across from Rachel at his kitchen table, Victoria's journal between them, like a bomb waiting to explode. "Start from the beginning," he said. "Tell me everything." Rachel took a long drink of wine. "Victoria was my big sister, 8 years older. When I was a kid, she was my hero. Beautiful, smart, fearless. She was going to change the world." Rachel's voice turned bitter. Then she got pregnant. What happened? Our parents happened. Edward and Margaret Hayes. Old money, old values, old prejudices. Rachel poured another glass. Victoria was 18, just finished high school, about to start at Yale. She met a boy that summer, charming, handsome, full of promises. When she told him she was pregnant, he disappeared. Who was he? Some trust fund kid from Connecticut, James something. Victoria never told me his last name. Rachel shrugged. Doesn't matter. He was gone and Victoria was alone, and our parents gave her an ultimatum. Give up the baby or lose everything. You know about that. Bradford told me. Victoria wrote about it in her letter. Rachel nodded slowly. Our parents were obsessed with appearances. A teenage pregnancy would have been a scandal, so they made Victoria choose give up the baby and pretend it never happened or be cut off completely. No money, no family, no future. And she gave up the baby. She was 18, Daniel. Scared, alone, abandoned by the only boy she'd ever loved. Our parents promised her it was for the best, that the baby would go to a good family, that Victoria could go to Yale and have a real life. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. They lied. About all of it. What do you mean? Victoria never went to Yale. She deferred her admission, then never enrolled. She spent 6 months in a depression so deep, our parents had to hire a nurse to make sure she didn't hurt herself. When she finally came out of it, she was different. Harder. Colder. Rachel wiped her eyes. She told me once that she'd left part of herself in that hospital room. The part that knew how to love without being afraid. Daniel thought about Victoria's face when she'd asked about his bed. The fear in her eyes. The trembling in her hands. When did she start looking for Lily? Almost immediately, but adoption records were sealed back then, harder to access than they are now. Victoria hit dead end after dead end. Our parents refused to help, said she needed to move on, forget the baby ever existed. Rachel laughed bitterly. Forget, as if you could forget your own child. So what did she do? She built an empire. Rachel gestured around the modest apartment. Everything Victoria achieved, the company, the money, the power, she did it for one reason: to find her daughter. She used to say that when she was rich enough, powerful enough, no sealed record could stop her. No secret could stay buried. And she was right. Eventually. It took 15 years, 3 different private investigators, and more money than most people will ever see. But 6 months ago, her investigator called with news. Rachel's voice dropped. He'd found her. A 6-year-old girl named Lily Carter, living in Chicago with her adoptive father. Daniel's chest ached. Why didn't she tell me immediately? Because she was terrified. She'd spent 15 years building up to this moment, and when it finally came, she froze. Rachel reached across the table and touched Daniel's hand. You have to understand, Daniel. Victoria had convinced herself that finding Lily would fix everything, fill the hole in her heart, give her life meaning. But when she actually found her, she realized it was more complicated than that. Complicated how? Lily had a father, a good father from what Victoria could tell. A man who loved her, cared for her, built his whole life around her. Victoria was terrified that if she came forward, she'd destroy that. She'd be the villain who tore a happy family apart. So she brought cookies instead. Rachel smiled sadly. She brought cookies. She asked about drawings. She fell in love with her daughter all over again, one visit at a time. The smile faded. And she fell in love with you, too. Daniel pulled his hand away. She barely knew me. She knew enough. She watched you with Lily, saw how patient you were, how kind. She read your personnel file, cover to cover, your military service, your divorce, the way you stepped up to raise your sister's daughter without hesitation. She used to call me at 2 in the morning, going on and on about, Daniel said this, and Daniel did that. Rachel shook her head. I hadn't heard her that excited about anything in years. She should have told me. She was going to. That's why she asked to meet you at the park. She'd written out what she wanted to say, practiced it 100 times. Rachel's voice broke. I spoke to her that Friday night. She was so nervous, so hopeful. She said tomorrow was going to change everything. But tomorrow never came. No, it didn't. They sat in silence for a long moment. Daniel stared at the journal on the table, Victoria's handwriting blurring through his unshed tears. "What's in there?" he finally asked. "Everything. Her search for Lily. Her feelings about you. Her fears, her hopes, her regrets." Rachel pushed the journal toward him. "She wanted you to have it. She wanted you to understand." Daniel picked up the journal. It felt heavier than it should have weighted with 15 years of longing, of loss of love that never got the chance to bloom. "There's something else," Rachel said quietly. "Something Victoria discovered during her search. Something about you. About me. About Lily's adoption. About your sister." Daniel's blood went cold. "What about Rebecca?" Rachel hesitated. "Your sister was Victoria's research assistant for 3 months during her senior year of college." The room tilted. Daniel grabbed the edge of the table. "What?" Victoria didn't know at first. When her investigator traced Lily to your family, Victoria didn't recognize your last name. But when she started researching you, she found Rebecca's employment records. Your sister worked for Victoria Daniel 20 years ago, before the company was even called Hayes Enterprises. That's not possible. Rebecca never mentioned. Rebecca probably didn't remember. It was a short internship, one of dozens Victoria supervised over the years. But Victoria remembered. When she realized who Rebecca was, she thought it was a sign. A sign of what? That her daughter was meant to come back to her. That all the pain, all the searching had been leading to this moment. Rachel's eyes were wet. She used to say that Lily had been protected by your family all along. That even when Victoria couldn't be there, her daughter had been loved. Daniel opened the journal with shaking hands. The first entry was dated 15 years ago, the handwriting younger but still recognizable. Day 1 of the search. "I hired an investigator today. His name is Martin Cross, and he promises he can find sealed adoption records if I'm willing to pay enough. I told him I'd pay anything. He looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I am, but I won't stop until I find her. I won't stop until I find my Lily." Daniel turned the pages, scanning entries that spanned years. Hope giving way to frustration. Frustration giving way to despair. Despair giving way to something darker. Something that read like a woman on the edge of giving up. Then 6 months ago, the tone changed. Martin called this morning. He found her. After all these years, he found her. Her name is Lily. Lily. The same name I gave her before they took her away. She's 6 years old. Blonde hair, brown eyes. She lives in Chicago with her adoptive father, Daniel Carter. She's beautiful. She's healthy. She's alive. I'm going to find her. I'm going to see my daughter's face. Daniel's vision blurred. He turned more pages, reading about Victoria's first visit to his office. Her first glimpse of Lily. Her first conversation with the daughter she'd lost. She likes dinosaurs. She drew me a picture of a T-Rex. It's hanging in my office now, right next to the quarterly earnings reports. The board thinks I've lost my mind. Maybe I have. But when Lily handed me that drawing and said, "This is for you, Miss Victoria," I felt something I haven't felt in 15 years. I felt like a mother. "Daniel." He looked up. Rachel was watching him with concern. "There's more," she said gently. "Keep reading, the last few entries." Daniel turned to the final pages. The handwriting was shakier here, less controlled. "I've been having chest pains. Nothing serious, probably just stress. But it scares me. What if something happens before I can tell Daniel the truth? What if I die and Lily never knows who I am?" I called Rachel tonight, told her everything, asked her to give Daniel my journal if anything happens to me. She cried. I cried. We talked about Mom and Dad, how they ruined everything, how different our lives might have been if they'd just let me keep my baby. Rachel asked if I was going to tell Daniel soon. I said yes, tomorrow. I'm going to tell him tomorrow. The next entry was the last. Friday night. 11 p.m. I finally asked him, "Is your bed big enough for two?" He looked at me like I'd grown a second head, and for a moment I thought I'd ruined everything. But then he said the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me, "Only if you're the one beside me." I wanted to tell him right then. I wanted to say, "I'm Lily's mother and I love you both, and please let me be part of your family." But I couldn't. Not in the office. Not like that. So I asked him to meet me tomorrow. Riverside Park. I'm going to tell him everything. I'm scared. I'm so scared. But I'm hopeful too. For the first time in 15 years, I'm hopeful. If anything happens to me, if I don't get the chance to say it myself, I need Daniel to know I love him. I love Lily. And I'm sorry for all the years I missed. I'm sorry I was too afraid to... The entry ended there, unfinished, just like the letter. Daniel closed the journal and set it on the table. His hands were steady, but inside he was falling apart. "She was going to tell me," he said. "She was finally going to tell me, and then she died. I know. It's not fair. No, it's not." Daniel looked at Rachel, this stranger who shared Victoria's blood, Victoria's eyes, Victoria's pain. What do I do now? Rachel stood and walked around the table. She knelt beside his chair and took his hands in hers. "You raise your daughter. You love her. You tell her the truth when she's ready to hear it." Rachel's eyes were fierce. "And you don't let Victoria's memory die. You keep her alive for Lily. You make sure that little girl knows how much her birth mother loved her." How do I explain any of this? One day at a time. One story at a time. One cookie at a time. Rachel smiled through her tears. "Victoria believed you could do this, Daniel. She believed in you. Don't prove her wrong." Daniel didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to feel. Everything was too big, too overwhelming, too impossible to process. But somewhere in the back of his mind, he heard Victoria's voice. "Only if you're the one beside me." He would carry her with him, in his memories, in his stories, in the daughter they both loved. Victoria would never sleep beside him in his bed, but she would never leave his heart. And somehow, that would have to be enough. The reading of the will took place in Bradford's office the next morning. Daniel sat at the head of the table, surrounded by strangers in expensive suits, board members, executives, lawyers, whose names he immediately forgot. Bradford cleared his throat. "Ms. Hayes' will is straightforward. The majority of her estate, including her 42% stake in Hayes Enterprises, is to be held in trust for her biological daughter, Lily Carter, until her 25th birthday." Murmurs rippled through the room. Daniel saw Marcus Webb's face go white. "Mr. Daniel Carter is named as trustee," Bradford continued, "with full authority to manage the trust and make decisions on Lily's behalf. Additionally, Mr. Carter is named permanent CEO of Hayes Enterprises effective immediately with complete operational control of the company." "This is absurd." Marcus slammed his palm on the table. "Carter's been here 18 months. He doesn't have the experience, the credentials, the legal authority," Bradford interrupted coolly. "Was granted by Ms. Hayes herself. The will is airtight, Mr. Webb. My firm has spent the last 3 days confirming that. The board won't accept this. The board doesn't have a choice." Bradford turned to Daniel. "Mr. Carter, do you accept the responsibilities outlined in this will?" Every eye in the room fixed on Daniel. He thought about Victoria, about Lily, about the journal sitting on his kitchen table filled with 15 years of love and loss. "Yes," he said. "I accept." Marcus stood so fast his chair toppled backward. "This isn't over, Carter. I'll have my lawyers review every line of this document. If there's a single flaw, There isn't." Bradford's voice was ice. "Ms. Hayes anticipated your objections, Mr. Webb. She anticipated many things." He produced another envelope from his folder. She also left this: instructions to be read aloud at the conclusion of the will. Bradford opened the envelope and began to read. To whoever is challenging my decisions, I built Hayes Enterprises from nothing. I turned a failing startup into a billion-dollar company through my own vision and determination. I earned the right to decide who leads it after I'm gone. I chose Daniel Carter because he is honest, hardworking, and loyal. I chose him because he puts his family first always. I chose him because he is exactly the kind of person I wish I had been when I was young, brave enough to love without conditions, strong enough to sacrifice for the people who matter. If you cannot accept my choice, you are free to resign. But you will not overturn it. I made sure of that. Victoria Hayes. The room was silent. Marcus's face had gone from white to red to something approaching purple. "This meeting is adjourned," Bradford said. "Mr. Carter, if you'll stay behind there are additional documents requiring your signature." The board members filed out slowly, shooting Daniel looks that ranged from curious to hostile. Marcus was the last to leave, pausing at the door. "You don't belong here, Carter." Victoria was clearly not in her right mind when she wrote that will. "I'll prove it." "Try," Daniel said. "But you should know Victoria told me everything. About you, about your attempts to undermine her, about the vote you were organizing to have her removed as CEO." Marcus's face drained of color. She couldn't have. She kept records, detailed records, one of the many things she left me. Daniel stood and walked toward Marcus until they were inches apart. "Come after me, and I'll make sure every board member, every investor, every journalist in the country knows exactly what kind of man you are. Are we clear?" Marcus said nothing. He turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Bradford chuckled softly. "Well played, Mr. Carter." "Is it true? About the records?" "It's true. Victoria was many things, but naive wasn't one of them. She knew Marcus was a threat. She prepared accordingly." Bradford handed Daniel a thick folder. "Everything you need is in here. Financial reports, personnel files, strategic plans. Victoria wanted you to hit the ground running." Daniel took the folder, overwhelmed by its weight. "Can I do this? Can you run a billion-dollar company?" "Probably not. Not alone." Bradford smiled. "But Victoria didn't expect you to do it alone. She expected you to learn to grow, to surround yourself with good people. She believed in your potential, Mr. Carter. Don't make her wrong." That night, Daniel sat on the edge of Lily's bed, watching his daughter sleep. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. She had no idea that her whole world was about to change, that the woman who brought her cookies was actually her birth mother, that she would someday inherit a company worth billions, that her father was now the CEO of something he barely understood. "I don't know how to do this," Daniel whispered. "I don't know how to tell you the truth. I don't know how to run a company. I don't know how to be what Victoria thought I could be." Lily stirred but didn't wake. Her stuffed elephant was clutched against her chest, her blonde hair spread across the pillow. "But I'm going to try," Daniel continued. "For you, for Victoria, for the family we could have been." He leaned down and kissed Lily's forehead. "I love you, baby girl. Whatever happens, I love you." He stood and walked to the door, pausing to look back one last time. In the soft glow of the nightlight, Lily's face looked exactly like Victoria's in that hospital photograph, young, vulnerable, full of possibility. Daniel closed the door gently and walked to his own bedroom. The bed was empty, cold, big enough for two, but occupied by one. He lay down and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere, he hoped Victoria was watching. Somewhere, he hoped she knew that her daughter was loved. Her company was safe. Her secrets were finally free. And somewhere in a future, Daniel couldn't yet imagine, Lily would learn the truth about the mother who never stopped searching for her. The mother who died with her name on her lips. The mother who loved her from the first breath to the last. But that day was not today. Today, Daniel would sleep. Tomorrow he would begin the impossible task of building a life from the wreckage Victoria had left behind. One day at a time. One secret at a time. one cookie at a time. 6 months passed, and Daniel Carter learned that running a billion-dollar company was nothing like the movies made it seem. There were no dramatic boardroom confrontations, no inspiring speeches that turned enemies into allies. There was only paperwork, endless soul-crushing paperwork. Reports and projections and balance sheets that blurred together until Daniel couldn't tell Tuesday from Thursday. But he learned. Slowly, painfully he learned. He arrived at the office at 6 every morning and didn't leave until 8 every night. He read every document Victoria had left him studied, every strategic plan memorized, every name on the organizational chart. He hired a team of advisors who didn't treat him like an imposter, at least not to his face. And he listened to them with a humility that surprised everyone, including himself. And every night, no matter how late he came home to Lily. "Daddy, you look tired." Daniel smiled at his daughter across the breakfast table. She was 7 now, having celebrated her birthday 2 months ago, with a party that Rachel had helped organize. The guest list had included 12 first graders, 3 clowns, and enough cake to feed a small army. "I am tired, baby girl." "Then why do you keep going to work so much?" "Because Miss Victoria left me a very important job, and I promised I would do it." Lily poked at her cereal. She'd been doing that a lot lately, picking at food, staring into space, asking questions that had no easy answers. "Daddy." "Yeah." "Why did Miss Victoria leave you her job? You're not her family." Daniel's chest tightened. They'd had versions of this conversation before, but Lily was getting older, smarter. Her questions were getting harder to deflect. Sometimes family isn't about blood, sweetheart. Sometimes it's about who you choose. Did Miss Victoria choose us? Yes, she did. Why? Daniel set down his coffee cup. He'd known this moment would come eventually. He just hadn't expected it so soon. "Lily, do you remember when we talked about how you were adopted?" "Yeah. You said my tummy mommy loved me very much but couldn't take care of me. So Mommy Rebecca adopted me. And then when she went to heaven, you adopted me." "That's right." Daniel took a breath. "Miss Victoria, she knew your tummy mommy, Lily. They were very close." Lily's eyes widened. "They were?" "Yes, and Miss Victoria wanted to make sure you were taken care of. That's why she left me her job, so I could take care of you and give you everything your tummy mommy would have wanted you to have." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough for now. Enough to satisfy a 7-year-old's curiosity without shattering her world. So Miss Victoria was like, my tummy mommy's friend. Something like that. Lily seemed to consider this. Then she nodded, apparently satisfied, and returned to her cereal. Daniel exhaled slowly. He'd bought himself time, but the clock was ticking, and someday soon he would have to tell her everything. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant, Marcus Webb, called emergency board meeting. 10 a.m. Attendance mandatory. Daniel's jaw tightened. 6 months of relative peace, and now Marcus was making his move. "Mrs. Patterson," he called. The elderly woman appeared in the doorway. "Yes, dear. I need to go to work early. Can you take Lily to school?" "Of course." Mrs. Patterson looked at his face and frowned. "Trouble?" "Always." Daniel kissed Lily's forehead, grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. Whatever Marcus was planning, Daniel would be ready. Or so he thought. The boardroom was packed when Daniel arrived. Every seat was taken, every face grim. Marcus Webb sat at the head of the table, Daniel's seat, with a smile that made Daniel want to punch him. "Ah, Mr. Carter, so glad you could join us." "You're in my chair, Marcus." "Am I? I thought this was a democratic institution." Daniel walked to the head of the table and stood directly over Marcus. "Move. Make me." The tension in the room was suffocating. Board members exchanged nervous glances. No one spoke. Daniel leaned down until his face was inches from Marcus's. "I said, move." Something in Daniel's eyes made Marcus flinch. He stood slowly, straightening his tie, and moved to another seat. Very well, if you insist on maintaining this charade. Daniel sat down and looked around the table. What's this about, Marcus? I have actual work to do. This is about the future of Hayes Enterprises. Marcus slid a folder across the table. We've received a buyout offer. Victor Hargrove, Hargrove Industries. Daniel opened the folder and scanned the documents. The numbers were staggering billions of dollars, enough to make every shareholder in the room obscenely wealthy. Victor Hargrove, Daniel repeated. Victoria's former business partner. The same. He left the company 8 years ago after a disagreement with Victoria. What kind of disagreement? The kind that ends with lawyers and restraining orders. Marcus smiled thinly. Victoria refused to sell. She said she'd rather burn the company to the ground than let Victor have it. But Victoria is dead, and you're not her. Daniel closed the folder. The answer is no. You haven't even considered. I said no. Marcus's smile disappeared. This isn't your decision alone, Carter. The board has a fiduciary responsibility to consider all offers. If we reject this without due diligence, shareholders could sue. Then let them sue. Daniel stood and addressed the room. Victoria built this company from nothing. She built it for her daughter, a daughter who will inherit controlling interest when she turns 25. I will not sell her birthright to a man Victoria despised. Victoria's personal feelings are irrelevant. Victoria's wishes are the only thing that's relevant. Daniel slammed his palm on the table. She put me in this chair because she trusted me to protect what she built. If any of you have a problem with that, there's the door. Silence. Nobody moved. The answer is no, Daniel repeated. Meeting adjourned. He walked out without looking back. 3 days later, Victor Hargrove launched a hostile takeover. Daniel got the news from Bradford at 2 in the morning. Hargrove had been quietly buying shares for months, and with the shares Marcus had secretly sold him, he now controlled 38% of the company. How bad is it? Daniel asked, phone pressed to his ear. Bad. If Hargrove gets another 12%, he'll have enough votes to force you out. Can we stop him? We can try, but it won't be easy. Daniel sat in the darkness of his bedroom, mind racing. Victoria had left him detailed files on Hargrove, his tactics, his weaknesses, his secrets. She'd anticipated this moment, prepared for it, known that one day Daniel would have to fight this battle. He just hadn't expected it so soon. Bradford, I need everything Victoria had on Hargrove. Every document, every email, every piece of evidence she collected. Mr. Carter, some of that information is sensitive. I don't care. Hargrove wants a war. I'll give him a war. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Daniel's life. He fought on multiple fronts, in boardrooms and courtrooms, in the press, and on Wall Street. He gave interviews to business magazines arguing that Hayes Enterprises was more than just a company, that it represented Victoria's vision for a more ethical, family-friendly approach to capitalism. Some people believed him. Many didn't. Marcus Webb worked against him at every turn, whispering in shareholders' ears, planting stories in financial papers, doing everything he could to undermine Daniel's leadership. You're in over your head, Carter, Marcus told him one evening, cornering Daniel in the parking garage. Just admit it. Sell to Hargrove, take your golden parachute, and go back to being a nobody. Is that what you want, Marcus, to work for a man like Hargrove? I want to work for someone who knows what they're doing, someone who belongs in that corner office. Marcus stepped closer. You're a fraud, Carter. A charity case Victoria promoted because she had some twisted obsession with your daughter. Everyone knows it. Daniel grabbed Marcus by the collar and shoved him against a concrete pillar. Say that again. Get your hands off me. Say that again. Marcus's face was red, his eyes bulging. This is assault. I'll have you arrested. You think I care? Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. You think I give a damn about my career, my reputation, any of it? Victoria trusted me to protect her company and her daughter. I will do whatever it takes to honor that trust. Whatever it takes. Do you understand me? Marcus swallowed hard. You're insane. Maybe. But I'm also the man standing between Victor Hargrove and everything Victoria built. And if you help him destroy that, I will destroy you first. Daniel released Marcus and stepped back. Stay away from me. Stay away from my daughter. And stay away from Victoria's memory. He walked to his car without looking back. That night, Rachel called. I heard about Hargrove. How bad is it? Bad. Daniel rubbed his eyes. We need more shares to block the takeover. Shareholders who are willing to stand with us. What about Victoria's parents? Daniel froze. What? Edward and Margaret Hayes. They still own 4% of the company. Victoria gave them shares years ago before the estrangement. Victoria's parents are alive. Very much so. Living in a retirement community in Arizona. Rachel paused. They don't know about Lily. Victoria never told them she found her. Daniel's mind raced. 4%. It wasn't much, but combined with the shares he already controlled, it might be enough to block Hargrove. Can you set up a meeting? Daniel, they're not good people. They're the reason Victoria gave up her baby. The reason she spent 15 years alone and miserable. I know, but right now they might be the only people who can save their granddaughter's inheritance. Rachel was silent for a long moment. I'll make some calls. But Daniel, be careful. Edward and Margaret Hayes don't do anything without expecting something in return. What could they possibly want from me? Access to Lily, the granddaughter they never knew they had. Rachel's voice was heavy with warning. They'll use you, Daniel, just like they used Victoria. Then I'll use them right back. The meeting with Victoria's parents took place in a country club restaurant in Scottsdale. Daniel flew in alone, leaving Lily with Mrs. Patterson and strict instructions not to tell anyone where he was going. Edward Hayes was 82 years old, tall and thin, with silver hair and cold blue eyes. Margaret was 79, elegant in a way that reminded Daniel of Victoria, but with none of her warmth. Mr. Carter. Edward shook Daniel's hand without smiling. We've heard a lot about you. I'm sure you have. They sat at a table overlooking the golf course. A waiter brought water and menus, but no one looked at them. You're here about the company, Margaret said. It wasn't a question. I'm here about your granddaughter. Edward's expression flickered surprise, then something harder. Rachel told you. Victoria told me, before she died. The lie came easily. Daniel didn't owe these people the truth. Victoria had no right, Margaret began. Victoria had every right. Lily is her daughter, her biological daughter, the child you forced her to give away 22 years ago. Edward's jaw tightened. We did what was best for everyone. You did what was best for yourselves, for your reputation, for your precious social standing. Daniel leaned forward. Your daughter spent 15 years building an empire so she could find the child you made her abandon. She died before she could tell that child the truth. And now a man named Victor Hargrove is trying to steal everything Victoria built. We're aware of Mr. Hargrove's offer, Edward said. He contacted us last week. Daniel's stomach dropped. What did you tell him? We told him we were considering our options. Your options. Daniel's voice rose. Your granddaughter's inheritance is at stake, and you're considering your options. Lower your voice, Mr. Carter. Margaret's tone was ice. We didn't ask to be put in this position. We didn't ask for our daughter to die, or for some stranger to show up demanding our loyalty. I'm not demanding your loyalty. I'm asking you to do the right thing, for once in your lives. Edward and Margaret exchanged a look, the kind of look couples develop after 50 years of marriage, saying everything without words. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Carter? Vote your shares with me. Block the takeover. Protect Lily's future. And in return? Daniel hesitated. He knew what they wanted. Rachel had warned him. In return, I'll consider allowing you to meet Lily, when she's ready, on her terms. Consider. Margaret's laugh was brittle. You want our shares, but you'll only consider letting us see our own granddaughter. Lily isn't your granddaughter. Not yet. You gave up that right when you forced Victoria to give her away. Daniel stood. I'm offering you a chance at redemption, a chance to be part of Lily's life someday. But it comes with conditions. You don't get to hurt her the way you hurt Victoria. You don't get to manipulate her or control her or make her feel like she's not good enough. If you can't accept that, then sell your shares to Hargrove and burn in hell. He turned and walked toward the door. Mr. Carter. Daniel stopped, but didn't turn around. We'll vote with you, Edward said quietly. But we want to see her, at least once. We want to see our granddaughter's face. Daniel turned. Edward looked older, suddenly smaller. Margaret's hands were shaking. Why? Because Victoria was our daughter. Edward's voice cracked. And we never got to say goodbye. We never got to tell her we were sorry. He looked at his wife, then back at Daniel. We made a terrible mistake. We know that now. We've known it for years. But we were too proud to admit it, too stubborn to reach out. And then it was too late. Victoria died thinking you didn't love her, Daniel said. Victoria died knowing exactly how much we loved her, Margaret whispered. That's what made it worse. Daniel stood in the doorway looking at these two broken people, the architects of Victoria's pain, the villains of her story. They deserved nothing from him. They deserved to lose their shares, their granddaughter, everything. But he thought about Lily, about the questions she would ask as she got older, about the family she had a right to know, even if that family was flawed and damaged and full of regret. One visit, he said finally, after the takeover is blocked, and if you do anything to hurt her, you'll never see her again. Edward nodded. Agreed. Daniel walked out into the Arizona sunshine, already dreading what he'd promised. The shareholder vote took place on a rainy Thursday in April. Daniel sat at the head of the boardroom table, flanked by Bradford and a team of lawyers. Across from him, Victor Hargrove smiled like a man who'd already won. This is a formality, Carter. Hargrove was 63, silver-haired, with the kind of tan that only money could buy. You've lost. Accept it gracefully. The vote hasn't happened yet. The vote is irrelevant. I have 43% of the shares locked up. You have, 38-39, the math doesn't lie. We'll see. The votes came in one by one. Daniel watched the numbers tick up on the display screen, his heart pounding in his chest. Hargrove 43.2%. Carter 38.7%. Uncommitted 18.1%. The uncommitted votes began to fall. Some went to Hargrove, some went to Daniel. The gap narrowed, widened, narrowed again. Then Edward Hayes's vote came in. Carter 42.7%. Hargrove 43.2%. It wasn't enough. Daniel felt his stomach sink. But the votes kept coming. Small shareholders, pension funds, individual investors who'd received letters from Daniel explaining what Victoria had built and why it mattered. Carter 44.1%. Hargrove 43.8%. The gap widened. 45.3% to 43.9%. Then 47.2% to 44.1%. What's happening? Hargrove's smile had vanished. Those votes were committed to me. They were committed to Hayes Enterprises, Bradford said calmly. They chose the company's future over your money. When the final vote was counted, Daniel had won by 11 points. Hargrove stood so fast, his chair toppled backward. This isn't over, Carter. I'll file lawsuits. I'll claim fraud. You'll leave this building and never come back. Daniel stood and faced him. Victoria kept files on you, Hargrove. Detailed files. The SEC would be very interested in how you financed this takeover attempt. Hargrove's face went white. You're bluffing. Try me. For a long moment the two men stared at each other. Then Hargrove turned and walked out without another word. The boardroom erupted in applause. Bradford shook Daniel's hand. Board members who had doubted him 6 months ago now clapped him on the back and called him a hell of a fighter. But Daniel felt only exhaustion. He'd won this battle. But the war was far from over. That night, Daniel tucked Lily into bed and sat on the edge of her mattress, watching her arrange her stuffed animals in the precise order she insisted upon every night. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Something happened today, didn't it? You look different." Daniel smiled. His daughter was too perceptive for her own good. "Something good happened. I'll tell you about it when you're older." "You always say that?" "Because it's always true." Lily considered this, then nodded, apparently satisfied. She lay back against her pillows and looked up at him with Victoria's eyes. "Daddy, do you think Miss Victoria is happy in heaven?" Daniel's throat tightened. "I think so, baby. I hope so. I think she's happy because she knows we're okay." Lily reached up and touched his face. "And because she knows you're taking care of her company. She always said you were really smart." "She did?" "Yeah. One time when you weren't there, she told me that you were the best person she knew. She said you made her believe in good things again." Daniel couldn't speak. He could barely breathe. "I miss her," Lily whispered. "I know she wasn't my mommy or anything, but I miss her." Daniel pulled his daughter into his arms and held her tight. "She was your mommy, Lily. In a way, she was always your mommy." "What do you mean?" Daniel pulled back and looked into his daughter's face. Victoria's face, Rebecca's face, a blend of genetics and love, an impossible coincidence. "I'll tell you when you're older." "Promise." "Promise." He kissed her forehead, turned off the light, and walked to the door. "Daddy?" "Yeah. I love you." "I love you too, baby girl, more than anything in the world." He closed the door and stood in the hallway, Victoria's journal pressed against his chest. Someday he would tell Lily everything. Someday she would know about the mother who searched for her. The mother who died for her. The mother who loved her from first breath to last. But not today. Today she was 7 years old and safe and loved. Today that was enough. Daniel walked to his bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The bed Victoria had asked about, the bed that was still big enough for two, but occupied by one. He opened the journal and read the last entry again. Victoria's unfinished sentence echoing in his mind. "I love him. I love Lily. And I'm sorry for all the years I missed. I'm sorry I was too afraid to... Too afraid to what? Too afraid to love. Too afraid to hope. Too afraid to believe she deserved happiness." Daniel would never know. But he liked to think he understood. Victoria had been afraid of the same things he was afraid of: rejection, disappointment, the crushing weight of love that might not be returned. But she'd asked anyway. She'd taken the risk. And even though fate had stolen her chance at an answer, she'd died knowing one thing for certain. His bed was big enough for two. And if things had been different, she would have been the one beside him. 2 years passed, and Lily Carter grew into a girl who asked too many questions. She was 9 now, tall for her age, with Victoria's dark eyes and a stubborn streak that Daniel recognized as his own. She had started 4th grade in September and had already been sent to the principal's office once for arguing with her teacher about dinosaur extinction theories, and once for punching a boy who said her father didn't deserve to be CEO. He said you only got the job because some lady felt sorry for you. Lily explained that evening, sitting at the kitchen table with an ice pack on her knuckles. He said his dad told him you were a charity case. Daniel sat across from her, trying to look stern and failing miserably. And punching him seemed like the appropriate response. He was wrong. You're not a charity case. You're the best CEO Hayes Enterprises ever had. Second best, Daniel corrected gently. Victoria was the best. Lily's face softened at the mention of Victoria's name. She still kept a photo of Miss Victoria on her nightstand, Still talked about her sometimes before bed, still asked questions Daniel wasn't ready to answer. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "You just did." "Daddy." Okay, ask." Lily set down the ice pack and looked at him with those eyes, Victoria's eyes full of intelligence and determination. "Why did Miss Victoria leave everything to me?" Daniel's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I'm not stupid. I know I'm going to inherit the company when I'm 25. Mrs. Patterson told me. She didn't mean to, but I heard her talking to the mailman about it." Lily leaned forward. "Why would Miss Victoria leave her whole company to me? She barely knew me." Daniel had known this conversation was coming. He'd prepared for it, rehearsed it, lost sleep over it for 2 years. But now that it was here, every carefully crafted explanation vanished from his mind. "Lily. And don't say you'll tell me when I'm older. I'm 9. I'm old enough." She was right. She was old enough. And she deserved the truth. "Okay," Daniel said slowly. "But this is a long story, and some parts might be hard to hear." "I can handle it." Daniel looked at his daughter, this fierce, brilliant, stubborn girl, who had Victoria's face and Rebecca's laugh and his own inability to back down from a fight. She could handle it. He was the one who wasn't ready. But he'd promised Victoria. He'd promised to tell Lily the truth when she was ready. "Do you remember when we talked about your tummy mommy?" he began. "The one who loved me, but couldn't take care of me." "Yeah. I told you Miss Victoria knew your tummy mommy, that they were close." Lily nodded. That wasn't exactly true. Daniel took a breath. "Victoria didn't know your tummy mommy. Victoria was your tummy mommy." Lily stared at him. For a long moment she didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even seem to breathe. "What?" "Miss Victoria was your birth mother, Lily. She gave you up for adoption when she was 18 because her parents forced her to. She spent 15 years trying to find you, and she finally did, 3 months before she died." "That's not possible." Lily's voice was shaking. "She would have told me. She would have said something." "She was going to. The day she died, she was supposed to meet me at the park. She was going to tell me everything so we could tell you together." Daniel's voice cracked. "But she never made it." Lily stood so fast, her chair toppled backward. "You're lying." "I'm not lying, baby." "You are. Miss Victoria she was just nice to me because she liked you. She couldn't be my—" Lily's face crumpled. She turned and ran out of the kitchen, and Daniel heard her bedroom door slam hard enough to shake the walls. He sat alone at the table, head in his hands, wondering if he'd made the right choice. For 3 days, Lily refused to speak to him. She went to school, did her homework, ate her meals, but she did it all in silence, with a wall of ice between them that Daniel couldn't penetrate. On the 4th day, Rachel came to visit. "She's not talking to you?" Rachel asked, settling onto Daniel's couch with a cup of tea. "Not a word. She looks at me like I'm a stranger." "You told her the truth. That's terrifying for a 9-year-old. Was I wrong? Should I have waited?" Rachel considered the question. No, she needed to know. But knowing and accepting are 2 different things. She set down her tea. "Have you shown her Victoria's journal?" "Not yet. I wasn't sure." "Show her. Let her read Victoria's words for herself. Let her see how much her mother loved her." That night, Daniel knocked on Lily's door. "Go away. I have something for you. Something from Victoria." Silence. Then slowly the door opened a crack. "What is it?" Daniel held up the worn leather journal. "Your mother's diary. She kept it for 15 years. She wrote about searching for you, finding you, falling in love with you all over again." He extended the journal through the crack. "I think she would have wanted you to have it." Lily stared at the journal for a long moment. Then she reached out and took it. "I'm still mad at you." "I know. You should have told me sooner." "I know that too." Lily clutched the journal against her chest. Did she really love me? Even though she gave me away. She loved you more than anything in the world. Everything she did, the company, the money, all of it, she did it for you. So she could find you and give you the life she couldn't provide when she was young. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Then why did she give me away? Because she was 18 and scared and alone. Because her parents threatened to disown her. Because she thought you deserved better than a teenage mother with no money and no support. Daniel knelt down to Lily's level. She made a choice, Lily, and she regretted it every single day for the rest of her life. But that choice led you to Mommy Rebecca and then to me. And I wouldn't trade you for anything. Do you think she's mad at me? Mad at you? Why would she be mad at you? Because I never got to tell her I loved her back. Lily's voice broke. She told me she loved me. I remember now. She said it when she hugged me that one time, and I didn't understand what she meant, so I didn't say anything. And now she's dead, and she never knew. Daniel pulled his daughter into his arms. She knew, baby. She always knew. They sat on the floor of Lily's bedroom, holding each other, crying for the woman they had both loved and lost. Daddy. Yeah. I'm sorry I was mean to you. You weren't mean. You were hurt. There's a difference. Lily pulled back and wiped her eyes. Can I read the journal now? Take your time. And if you have questions, any questions, I'm right here. Lily nodded. She opened the journal to the first page, and Daniel watched his daughter begin to discover her mother. Over the next few weeks, Lily read Victoria's journal cover to cover. She read it at breakfast, at dinner, before bed. She carried it with her to school, keeping it in her backpack like a secret treasure. And slowly, she began to heal. Daddy, listen to this. Lily sat cross-legged on the couch, the journal open in her lap. Victoria wrote, "Today I brought Lily chocolate chip cookies. She told me they were the best cookies she'd ever had. I wanted to cry. I wanted to tell her that I used to make those cookies for myself when I was pregnant with her, that it was the only thing I craved for 9 months, that every time I bake them, I think of her. She was thinking about me the whole time." Daniel smiled. "She thought about you every day. And look at this one." Lily flipped to another page. "Daniel smiled at me today. A real smile, not the polite one he uses with clients. I felt like a teenager again, nervous and hopeful and terrified all at once. Is this what it feels like to fall in love I'd almost forgotten?" Daniel's chest ached. "Maybe we shouldn't read that part." "Why, it's romantic." Lily grinned. "She loved you, Daddy. Like really loved you." "I know. Did you love her back?" Daniel hesitated. It was a question he'd asked himself 1,000 times. He'd known Victoria for less than 2 years. They'd never gone on a date, never kissed, never done any of the things couples do when they're falling in love. But he'd felt something for her. Something real. "I think I could have," he finally said. "If we'd had more time." Lily nodded, accepting this. "I wish you'd had more time too." 1 month after Daniel told Lily the truth, a package arrived at their door. There was no return address, just Daniel's name, written in handwriting he didn't recognize. Inside was a small video camera and a note. "Mr. Carter, Victoria gave me this camera 3 years ago, with instructions to send it to you if anything happened to her. I apologize for the delay. I've been living abroad and only recently learned of her passing. The video was recorded for her daughter, in case Victoria never got the chance to meet her in person. I hope it brings you both some comfort. Sincerely, Diana Mitchell, Victoria's college roommate." Daniel's hands were shaking as he connected the camera to their television. "What is that?" Lily asked, coming into the living room with a glass of juice. "A video, from Victoria, for you." Lily set down her juice and sat on the couch, her eyes wide. She made a video, apparently, 3 years ago. Before she found me. Before she found you. Daniel pressed play. Victoria's face filled the screen, younger than Daniel remembered, with fewer lines around her eyes and more hope in her expression. She was sitting in what looked like an office, her hands folded in her lap, her voice steady but emotional. "Hello, sweetheart." Lily grabbed Daniel's hand and squeezed. "If you're watching this, it means I found you, but didn't get the chance to tell you myself. I've been preparing for that possibility for years, hoping it won't happen, but knowing it might." Victoria took a breath. "My name is Victoria Hayes. I'm 40 years old, and I'm the CEO of a company called Hayes Enterprises. But none of that matters. What matters is that I'm your mother, your birth mother, and I've loved you every single day since you were born." Lily's grip on Daniel's hand tightened. "I know you must have questions. Why did I give you up? Didn't I want you? Didn't I love you enough to keep you?" Victoria's eyes glistened with tears. "The answer is complicated. I was 18 alone, and my parents, your grandparents, gave me an impossible choice. I thought I was doing what was best for you. I thought you'd have a better life with a family who could provide for you, love you, give you everything I couldn't." Victoria wiped her eyes. "I was wrong. Not about you having a better life. I hope you did, but about what I could have given you. I could have given you myself, my love, my time, my devotion. Instead, I gave you away and spent 15 years regretting it." On the screen, Victoria leaned forward, as if she could see through the camera into Lily's eyes. "But I never stopped searching for you. Every success I had, every dollar I earned, every mountain I climbed, I did it for you, so that when I found you, I could give you the life I should have given you from the beginning." Daniel glanced at Lily. Tears were streaming down her face. "I don't know what your life has been like. I don't know if you're happy, if you're loved, if you've had a good childhood. But I want you to know that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I'm proud of you. I've been proud of you since the moment you were born." Victoria's voice broke. "The nurses thought I was crazy, you know, naming a baby I was giving away. But I couldn't let you go without giving you something of myself. So I named you Lily, like the flower, because lilies grow in the darkest places and still find a way to bloom." Lily gasped. "She named me Lily." "She named you Lily," Daniel whispered. On the screen, Victoria continued. "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. It means I found you, but never got to say these words to your face. And I'm so sorry for that. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough sooner. I'm sorry I let fear keep me from you. I'm sorry for every birthday I missed, every scraped knee. I wasn't there to bandage every nightmare I couldn't chase away." Victoria pressed her hand against her heart. "But please know this, my love for you never wavered. Not for 1 second. You were the first thought I had every morning and the last thought I had every night. You were the reason I got out of bed, the reason I kept fighting, the reason I believed in anything at all." The video flickered slightly, old footage, imperfect recording, but Victoria's voice was clear. "I don't know who's taking care of you now. I don't know if your adoptive parents are kind, if you have siblings, if you're happy. But whoever is raising you, please tell them thank you for me. Thank them for loving you when I couldn't. Thank them for being the parent I should have been." Daniel felt tears rolling down his own cheeks. "And if your father is watching this with you, the man who raised you, who loved you, who chose you, please tell him that my only regret is not having the courage to ask him about his bed sooner." Lily looked at Daniel, confused. "What does that mean?" Daniel couldn't answer. His throat was too tight. On the screen, Victoria smiled, a real smile full of love and hope and grief. "I have to go now, sweetheart. I have a meeting with an investigator who thinks he might have found a lead on your location. Maybe this time he'll be right. Maybe this time I'll finally get to see your face." Victoria leaned in close to the camera. "I love you, Lily. I've loved you from your first breath, and I'll love you until my last. Whatever happens wherever you are, remember that you are wanted, you are cherished, you are mine. The screen went black. For a long moment, neither Daniel nor Lily moved. They sat together on the couch, hands intertwined, surrounded by the echo of Victoria's voice. Then Lily spoke. "She really loved me." "She really loved you." "And she named me Lily. She named me before she gave me up." "She did." Lily turned to face Daniel, her cheeks wet with tears but her eyes bright with something new, understanding maybe, or acceptance. "Daddy, I want to visit her grave." "We can do that. I want to tell her things I should have said when she was alive." "She'd like that." Lily leaned against Daniel's shoulder. "Thank you for telling me the truth. I know it was hard." "You deserve the truth, baby. You always have." They sat together in the fading light, the television screen dark, Victoria's journal on the coffee table beside them. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Daddy, yeah. Do you think she can hear me? Wherever she is?" Daniel thought about that. He wasn't sure what he believed about heaven, about souls, about what happened after death. But he believed in love. He believed that love didn't end just because someone stopped breathing. "I think so, baby. I think she hears everything." Lily nodded, satisfied. Then she closed her eyes and began to speak quietly, almost a whisper. "Hi, Victoria. It's Lily. You're Lily. I know you can't answer, but I wanted to talk to you anyway. I read your journal. All of it. I know how much you loved me. I know you searched for me for 15 years. I know you never gave up." Daniel listened, his heart breaking and healing at the same time. "I'm sorry I didn't understand when you were alive. I'm sorry I didn't say I love you back when you hugged me that day. But I'm saying it now. I love you. I love you. And I'm proud that you're my mom. My first mom. My birth mom." Lily's voice cracked. "Daddy's taking good care of me. He runs your company really well, even though he says you were better. He tells me stories about you sometimes, about how brave you were, how smart, how you never let anyone push you around. I want to be like you when I grow up." Tears were streaming down Daniel's face now. "I'm going to visit your grave soon. I'm going to bring you flowers. Lilies probably, because you named me Lily. Because lilies grow in the darkest places and still bloom." Lily opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling. "I miss you. I wish I'd known you longer. But I have your journal, and I have your video, and I have Daddy. So I'm going to be okay." She paused. "I hope you're okay too. I hope heaven has chocolate chip cookies. I hope you're happy." Lily fell silent. Daniel pulled her close, and they stayed that way for a long time. The next morning, Daniel took Lily to Victoria's grave. It was a simple headstone, white marble, elegant script in a quiet corner of the cemetery. Lily had insisted on carrying the flowers herself, a bouquet of white lilies she'd picked out at the florist that morning. "It's pretty here," Lily said softly. Victoria liked pretty things. Lily knelt down and placed the flowers against the headstone. She traced Victoria's name with her fingertip. Victoria Ann Hayes, beloved daughter, sister, and friend. Lily looked up at Daniel. "It doesn't say mother." "No, it doesn't. Can we change it?" Daniel felt something shift in his chest. "We can try." Lily nodded, satisfied. Then she turned back to the grave and began to talk quietly, like she was sharing secrets with an old friend. Daniel stepped back, giving her space, and watched his daughter commune with the mother she'd never really known. 20 minutes later, Lily walked back to him, her eyes red, but her smile bright. "I told her everything, about school, about my friends, about the boy I punched for saying mean things about you." She grinned. "I think she'd be proud of me for that." "I think you're right." Lily took Daniel's hand. "Can we come back next week?" "We can come back whenever you want. And maybe we can bring Rachel and Grandma and Grandpa Hayes." Daniel hesitated. Edward and Margaret had visited Lily 3 times since the takeover battle, each visit awkward and strained. But they were trying. For the first time in their lives, they were actually trying. If that's what you want, it is. Victoria would have wanted her family here. All of us. Lily squeezed his hand. We're all she ever wanted, Daddy. Her family back together. Daniel looked at Victoria's grave, at the flowers, the marble, the empty space beside the name where Mother should be, and felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. Then that's what we'll do. They walked out of the cemetery together, father and daughter carrying Victoria's memory between them, like something precious and fragile and infinitely strong. And somewhere Daniel hoped Victoria was watching, smiling. Finally at peace. 5 years had passed since Lily learned the truth about her mother, and the world had changed in ways Daniel Carter never could have predicted. Hays Enterprises had grown from a billion-dollar company to a global empire with offices in 12 countries and a reputation for ethical business practices that had become the gold standard in the industry. Daniel had led that growth, guided by Victoria's vision and his own stubborn determination to prove that he belonged in the corner office. But more importantly, he had established the Victoria Hays Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to reuniting adopted children with birth parents who were searching for them. The foundation had helped over 300 families find each other in its first 4 years, turning the tragedy of Victoria's death into a legacy of hope. Daddy, you're going to be late. Daniel looked up from his desk. Lily stood in the doorway of his home office, dressed in a blue gown that matched her eyes. Victoria's eyes, her hair swept up in an elegant twist that made her look far older than 14. Late for what? The gala. The foundation gala. The one you've been planning for 6 months. Lily crossed her arms. Don't tell me you forgot. I didn't forget. I'm just procrastinating, like always. Lily walked over and took his hand. Come on, Rachel's already there and Grandma Margaret called 3 times asking where you were. Daniel let his daughter pull him out of his chair. In the 5 years since Victoria's death, his relationship with Edward and Margaret Hays had transformed from cold tolerance to something approaching genuine family. They visited every month now, spoiling Lily with gifts and attention, trying to make up for the decades they'd lost with Victoria. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was perfect. But it was real. How do I look? Daniel asked, straightening his tie. Lily studied him critically. Like a CEO who hasn't slept in 3 days. That's because I haven't slept in 3 days. That's not healthy, Daddy. Neither is having a 14-year-old who sounds like my mother. Lily grinned. Victoria would have said the same thing. Victoria would have told me to delegate more and stop micromanaging. She would have been right. Daniel pulled Lily into a hug. She was almost as tall as him now, growing so fast he could barely keep up. Every day she looked more like Victoria, the same sharp intelligence, the same fierce determination, the same inability to let anything go. I'm proud of you, he said. You know that, right? You tell me every day. Because it's true every day. Lily pulled back and looked at him with those dark eyes. Victoria would be proud of you too. You know that, right? Daniel's throat tightened. Even after 5 years, the mention of Victoria's name could still bring him to his knees. I hope so. I know so. Lily took his arm. Now come on. We have 300 donors waiting to hear you talk about how amazing my mother was. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Hays Tower, the flagship building of Hays Enterprises. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over hundreds of guests in evening wear, all gathered to celebrate the foundation's 5th anniversary. Daniel stood at the edge of the room, watching the crowd mingle and laugh and toast to Victoria's memory. Rachel was there, deep in conversation, with a group of foundation volunteers. Edward and Margaret sat at a table near the front, looking uncomfortable in the spotlight, but present nonetheless. And Lily was everywhere, greeting guests, charming donors, moving through the crowd with a confidence that reminded Daniel so much of Victoria it made his heart ache. She's remarkable, isn't she? Daniel turned. A woman stood beside him, mid-40s, elegant with kind eyes and silver streaks in her dark hair. I'm sorry, do I know you? No, but I know you, and I knew Victoria. The woman extended her hand. Diana Mitchell. We spoke on the phone years ago. I sent you the video. Daniel's breath caught. Diana, you were Victoria's college roommate. For 4 years, we were like sisters. Diana's eyes glistened. I should have come sooner. I should have reached out after the funeral. But I was living in London, and by the time I processed everything, years had passed. You came now. That's what matters. Diana nodded, watching Lily work the room. She looks just like Victoria. The same presence, the same fire. She has Victoria's heart too. All of it. Victoria would have loved seeing this. Diana gestured at the gala, the guests, the giant portrait of Victoria hanging above the stage. All these people gathered in her name, helping families find each other. It's exactly what she would have wanted. Daniel thought about the 15 years Victoria had spent searching for Lily. The investigators, the dead ends, the crushing disappointments followed by impossible hope. She had understood better than anyone what it felt like to lose a child and spend your whole life trying to get them back. She would have been out there, Daniel said softly. Talking to every family, hearing every story, making sure everyone felt seen. You're doing that for her now. Trying to. It never feels like enough. Diana touched his arm. It's enough, Daniel. Trust me. Victoria talked about you, you know. In those last months. She called me the night before she died. Daniel's heart stopped. She did. She was so nervous. She said she'd finally found her daughter and was going to tell the father everything. She said she'd met a man who made her believe in second chances. Diana smiled through her tears. She said his bed was big enough for two and she was finally brave enough to climb in. Daniel couldn't speak. He'd spent 5 years wondering what Victoria had been thinking in those final hours, what she'd hoped for, what she'd dreamed about. Now he knew. She loved you, Diana said. She loved you and Lily more than she ever loved anything, and she died believing that the three of you would have been a family. We are a family, Daniel managed. Just not the one she imagined. Maybe, but maybe that's okay. Diana squeezed his arm. The families we build aren't always the ones we planned. Sometimes they're better. Before Daniel could respond, a hand touched his shoulder. Mr. Carter, it's time for your speech. Daniel nodded at his assistant and took a breath. He looked at Diana, at Rachel, at Edward, and Margaret, at the hundreds of strangers who had gathered to honor Victoria's memory. Then he looked at Lily. She was standing near the stage watching him with those dark eyes. She nodded once, a small gesture of encouragement, and Daniel felt something shift in his chest. He could do this, for Victoria, for Lily, for all of them. He walked to the podium. Good evening. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Daniel, the man who had risen from obscurity to lead one of the most successful companies in the country. The man who had turned a personal tragedy into a movement that had reunited hundreds of families. 5 years ago, I lost someone I loved. His voice echoed through the ballroom. Victoria Hayes was many things. She was a CEO, a visionary, a force of nature. She built an empire from nothing and ran it with integrity and grace. But none of that is why we're here tonight. Daniel paused, steadying himself. We're here because Victoria was also a mother. A mother who at 18 years old was forced to make an impossible choice. A mother who gave up her daughter and spent 15 years trying to find her. A mother who died before she could say the words she'd been practicing for a decade and a half. He looked at Lily. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I didn't know Victoria for very long, 18 months. But in that time, she changed my life in ways I'm still discovering. She showed me what it means to fight for the people you love. She showed me that it's never too late to find your way home. Daniel's voice cracked. Victoria found her daughter 3 months before she died. She never got to tell her the truth. She never got to hear her say, "I love you" back. But she knew that her daughter was loved, that her daughter was safe, that everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed, had been worth it. He gripped the podium. The Victoria Hayes Foundation exists because no parent should have to die without knowing their child. No child should have to grow up without knowing their story. We've reunited 312 families in the past 5 years. 312 mothers and fathers who got to hold their children again. 312 children who got to hear the words Victoria never got to say. Daniel looked at the portrait of Victoria hanging above the stage, that confident smile, those dark eyes, that fierce determination. Victoria used to ask me about my bed, whether it was big enough for 2. He smiled through his tears. I told her it was, but only if she was the one beside me. She died before we could find out what that meant. But I like to think she knows now. I like to think she's watching wherever she is, and she knows that her daughter grew up loved, that her company is thriving, that her legacy is changing the world. Daniel straightened. Tonight we celebrate that legacy. We celebrate every family that's been reunited, every story that's been told, every bed that's now full instead of empty. We celebrate Victoria Hayes, not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the legend, but the mother. The mother who never stopped searching. The mother who never stopped hoping. The mother who loved her daughter from her first breath to her last. He raised his glass. To Victoria. 300 voices echoed back. To Victoria. And somewhere in that ballroom, a 14-year-old girl with her mother's eyes whispered something only she could hear. I love you too, Mom. The years continued to pass, as years do, each one bringing new challenges and new triumphs. Lily graduated high school as valedictorian, delivering a speech about mothers who never give up and fathers who keep their promises. She went to Yale, Victoria's dream school, the one she'd deferred and never attended, and majored in business with a minor in psychology. She came home every holiday, every summer, every long weekend she could manage. She sat with Edward and Margaret, listening to their stories about a young Victoria they'd failed to protect. She visited Rachel every Sunday, learning about the sister her mother had loved and lost. She spent hours at Victoria's grave talking to a headstone that now read, Beloved Mother. And she watched Daniel grow older, slower, grayer, but never less determined. You should retire, Lily told him one evening home for Christmas during her senior year of college. You've been running that company for almost 10 years. Let someone else take over. Someone else will, when you're ready. I'm not ready. You will be. Daniel smiled at his daughter, this brilliant, fierce, compassionate woman who looked more like Victoria every day. You've got her instincts, you know. The way you read people, the way you make decisions. It's like watching Victoria all over again. I'm not her. No, you're better. Daniel took her hand. You're her and me and Rebecca and every person who ever loved you. You're the best of all of us. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can do it, Daddy. Run a billion-dollar company. Continue her legacy. Be who everyone expects me to be. You don't have to be who they expect. You just have to be yourself. Daniel squeezed her hand. That's all Victoria ever wanted. She didn't leave you a company because she wanted you to be her. She left it because she believed in who you could become. How do you know that? Because she told me. In her journal, in her letters, in everything she left behind. She wrote, I don't want Lily to be my shadow. I want her to be my light. Lily wiped her eyes. She really said that. She really said that. Lily was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. When I graduate, I'll start training. I'll learn everything I need to learn. And when I turn 25, you'll be ready. I'll be ready. 3 years later, on Lily's 25th birthday, the transfer was complete. Daniel signed the final documents in the same office where Victoria had asked about his bed. Lily stood beside him, watching the pen move across paper, watching her mother's dream become reality. "It's done," Bradford said quietly. "Lily Carter is now the majority owner of Hayes Enterprises." Lily stared at the documents. "I don't feel any different." "You won't. Not today." Daniel set down the pen and turned to face her. "But someday, maybe years from now, you'll make a decision that changes everything. You'll face a challenge that seems impossible. And you'll remember this moment, the moment your mother's faith in you became official. What if I fail? Then you'll learn and try again. That's what Victoria did. That's what I did. That's what everyone does." Lily looked around the office, the same view of the Chicago skyline, the same furniture, the same photo of Victoria on the wall that had been there since Daniel took over. "Can I ask you something, Daddy?" "Anything." "Do you regret it?" "Any of it. The company, the pressure, the years you spent fighting to protect something that wasn't even yours." Daniel thought about the question. He thought about the sleepless nights, the hostile takeovers, the moments when he'd wanted to walk away and never look back. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret it." "Why not?" "Because it led me here. To this moment. Watching my daughter become the woman her mother always knew she could be." Daniel's eyes glistened. "Victoria asked me once if my bed was big enough for two. I said yes, but only if she was the one beside me. She never got to be there. But you were Lily. Every single night for 25 years you were there. In my heart, in my life, in everything I did. My bed was never empty because you were always in it. You and Victoria both." Lily broke down. She threw her arms around Daniel and sobbed against his chest the way she had when she was 6 years old, and scared of thunderstorms, the way she had when she was 9, and learning the truth about her mother, the way she had at every milestone and setback and triumph of her entire life. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in the world." They held each other in Victoria's office, father and daughter, the living legacy of a woman who had never stopped searching for them. The foundation gala that year was the biggest yet. Over 500 guests filled the ballroom. The Victoria Hayes Foundation had now reunited over 1,000 families, with chapters in 12 countries and a waiting list of volunteers that stretched for months. Lily gave the keynote speech. She stood at the podium in a gown the same shade of blue her mother had worn in her final photo. Her dark hair swept back her eyes, bright with unshed tears. "My mother died when I was 6 years old," she began. "I didn't know she was my mother then. I knew her as Miss Victoria, the nice lady who brought me cookies and asked about my drawings. I didn't know she'd spent 15 years searching for me. I didn't know she'd built an empire just to find me. I didn't know she'd died with my name on her lips and her heart full of hope." The room was silent. "I learned the truth when I was 9. My father, my adoptive father, the man who raised me, sat me down and told me everything. He showed me her journal. He played me her video. He gave me the gift of knowing who my mother really was." Lily's voice broke. Victoria Hayes was not perfect. She made mistakes. She let fear hold her back. She waited too long to tell us the truth. But she loved me. She loved me with everything she had from the moment I was born to the moment she died. And she left behind a legacy that has changed thousands of lives. Lily looked at Daniel, sitting in the front row with Rachel and Edward and Margaret, her whole imperfect, beautiful family gathered together. "My father once told me that Victoria asked him about his bed, whether it was big enough for two. He said yes, but only if she was the one beside him." Lily smiled through her tears. "Victoria never got to be there, but she filled that bed anyway, with her memory, with her love, with the family she brought together. My father's bed was never empty because Victoria was always in it, and so was I." She raised her glass. "To my mother, to the woman who never stopped searching, to the woman who loved me before I knew what love was. To the woman who taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. It's about showing up. It's about loving someone so much you spend your whole life trying to find them. 500 voices responded. To Victoria. Lily stepped down from the podium and walked to Daniel. She took his hand. Thank you, Daddy. For what? For keeping her alive, for all of us. Daniel squeezed her hand. She was never gone, Lily. She was always right here. I know. Lily looked at the portrait of Victoria, hanging above the stage, that confident smile, those dark eyes, that fierce determination. I know. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the ballroom was empty, Daniel walked to Victoria's grave alone. It was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and reminds you that you're alive. He knelt beside the headstone and traced the words with his fingertip. Victoria Ann Hayes, beloved daughter, sister, friend, and mother. They'd added the word 5 years ago at Lily's request. It looked right there. Complete. True. Hey, Victoria. Daniel's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Lily gave her first speech as CEO tonight. She was incredible. You would have been so proud. He laughed softly. Actually, you probably are proud. Wherever you are, I like to think you're watching. He sat back on his heels. I think about you every day, you know. About what could have been. About the life we might have had if you just lived a little longer. If your heart had held on a few more hours. If I'd said something sooner, done something sooner, been brave enough to see what was right in front of me. Tears rolled down his cheeks. But I'm not sad anymore, not really. Because you gave me everything, Victoria. You gave me Lily. You gave me purpose. You gave me a family I never knew I needed, and a legacy I never knew I deserved. You asked about my bed, and I said it was big enough for 2. I meant it. I still mean it. Daniel placed his hand on the cold marble. My bed is big enough for 2, and you've been beside me every night for the past 20 years. In my dreams, in my memories, in the daughter we both love. You're there, Victoria. You've always been there. He stood slowly, his knees protesting the cold. Lily's going to be okay. Hayes Enterprises is going to be okay. The foundation is going to help thousands more families find each other. Everything you built, everything you dreamed, it's all still here, still growing, still changing the world. Daniel looked up at the stars. I hope you're at peace. I hope you're happy. I hope you finally know what I should have told you that day in my office when you asked about my bed and I gave you some clever answer instead of the truth. He took a breath. I loved you, Victoria. I love you still, and I always will. He turned and walked away, leaving the grave in silence. But if he'd listened closely, if he'd stayed just a moment longer, he might have heard the wind whisper back a woman's voice, soft and full of love, saying the words she never got to say. I loved you too, Daniel. I love you still, and I always will. Lily Carter became the most successful CEO in Hayes Enterprises history. She expanded the company into new markets, pioneered sustainable business practices, and turned the Victoria Hayes Foundation into the largest adoption reunion organization in the world. She married at 32, had twin daughters at 35, and named them both after the women who had made her possible, Victoria and Rebecca. Daniel lived to see all of it. He retired at 67, passing the torch to Lily and her team. He spent his final years traveling, writing, and volunteering at the foundation. He visited Victoria's grave every Sunday, rain or shine, talking to her about the grandchildren she never got to meet, the legacy she never got to see, fulfilled the love that never went away. He died at 78 peacefully in his sleep. Lily found him the next morning, a smile on his face, and Victoria's journal clutched against his chest. The last entry was dated the night before, his handwriting. Shaky but determined. Dear Victoria, I'll see you soon. Save room in your bed. Yours forever, Daniel. They buried him next to Victoria in the quiet corner of the cemetery where lilies bloomed every spring. The headstone read, Daniel James Carter, beloved father and friend. His bed was always big enough for two. Lily visited them every Sunday, just as Daniel had visited Victoria. She brought flowers, told stories, and talked to them both as if they were sitting right beside her. Because, in a way, they were. Family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up. It's about loving someone so much you spend your whole life trying to find them. Victoria spent 15 years searching for her daughter. Daniel spent 20 years honoring her memory, and Lily spent her whole life proving that their love had been worth every sacrifice, every heartbreak, every moment of doubt. Some beds are made for sleeping, others are made for dreaming, and the best beds, the ones that matter, are big enough for everyone you love, whether they're beside you or waiting for you on the other side. Victoria Hayes asked Daniel Carter if his bed was big enough for two. He said yes. And in the end, it held them all. Father, mother, daughter, united across time and death and everything in between. Because love doesn't end when someone stops breathing. Love doesn't shrink when the bed gets cold. Love grows. Love finds a way. And the bed is always, always big enough for two.